then the second part is an alignment piece where you say, okay, so then with all these roles I have, all these responsibilities I have, all these dreams I have, all these callings I have, all these expectations I have, these are all things that you might have for yourself or what other people might have for you. You kind of start to sort through and say, okay, well, I am human and one person. So what is reasonable? What aligns with my values and what I feel like I'm called to be focused on right now?
Welcome to the Real Mom Hub, where we celebrate the beautiful, profound transformation into motherhood.
It's a journey that shatters and rebuilds us in incredible ways. We share the voices of everyday moms honing and discovering their natural instincts and superpowers.
We talk to experts to try and make sense of our minds and bodies.
We air out the hard parts of parenting people don't like to talk about.
Because let's be honest, motherhood is as hard as it is joyful.
So why not embrace it? Lean into the growth, the struggle, the magic. This is your opportunity for complete and utter personal transformation.
Come with us. We're so glad you're here. Well, today we have Heidi Lewerenz, and it took me a whole year to learn how to say your last name. Was that right?
You're right.
Okay, good.
It's a tricky one.
It is, because it doesn't look like that when you see it. So I met Heidi through choir, this children's choir I direct, because I had 3 of her girls in choir. And when I found out she was a homeschooling mom and a working mom and an entrepreneur and had a bunch of kids, I'm like, okay, I need to learn from you. And then it turns out like she's had some really cool businesses and has been in the coaching space for moms and just has so much wisdom. So we're so excited to have Heidi on. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks so much for the invitation. It's such an honor. Thanks for trusting me with your audience.
We're so excited. My mind is just, my mind, I can't even speak. My mind is just blown that you homeschooled. Like you have all these businesses. This is how I know about your background. Like you have many children,
Yes.
You live an intentional life, you have all these businesses, and I don't know why the fact that you also homeschooled is just wrecking me right now. I don't know. I don't know how to hold all these things.
I don't have all these businesses, I guess, like over time. I don't have them all at once, And so I've had a couple different businesses, but I really only have juggled one at a time.
Only a business and homeschooling.
So how many kids do you have? What does your day-to-day look like?
Every day is a little different. I do have 7 children, and they range in age from 6 to 22. They're all about 2 years apart. Some are less than that, some are more. And there's a 4-year gap at the end and a 3-year gap somewhere in the middle. But so they're all kind of like, they were all kind of bam, bam, bam. Like I had 3 under 3. I had 4 under 5. So those are crazy years. But yeah, so I did not intend to homeschool. I didn't even intend to get married or be a mom. So as a child, I thought, I played with dolls and I would be into all of that. But as I went through college and then I got into my career, I just loved it so much. And I was like, well, I probably can't do both really well. So I'm just gonna do work. And I loved it. And then I met my husband and I was like, well, maybe I'll get married. He's pretty quality. So I did that. And we did have conversation about kids. And by the time we got married, I was like, yeah, 2, maybe 4. Like I wanted to have even numbers. And so that's where that was before my life happened. So that's probably a whole nother story. But yes, my everyday is we still have 5 at home. The oldest just graduated high school. The youngest just finished kindergarten. We homeschool the younger 3, and the other 2 are in high school full-time in our public school. I work Monday afternoons, all day Wednesday, and Friday mornings. And I school all the rest of the mornings. And I do have a friend who misses homeschooling her children, so she'll come in periodically and help on one of those mornings sometimes. And then I work. So it's pretty much school in the morning, work in the afternoon, which used to be nap time. No one's napping anymore. And then we're in that season of running because we're letting our kids be involved in activities, even if they each pick 1 or 2. I mean, that's a lot. We have days where there's like consistently 8 pickups and drop-offs, so it's like running a trucking logistics company. I have a 5-foot by 3-foot whiteboard calendar in my entryway just so that we can keep everybody. I need help. Like I can't just keep this in my head. So this at least employs everybody's eyeballs on the calendar. Can't tell you the number of times I've had kids go, Mom, aren't you supposed to pick her up at like 4 o'clock?
Incredible.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yes.
So they're engaged. That was going to be my next question. Like, are they actually looking at the white? And yes, they are. They're letting you know when things are falling.
Yes. Well, and because it's a lot to manage, it's a big tool that's used in our family for communication. So like some of my older kids, they work, but they have to put their work schedule up there. So I know they need a car, or I can think about, oh, if you're working, maybe you could pick up so-and-so on your way home. And we kind of have a rule, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen. So that also kind of engenders this idea of let's pay attention to the calendar and engage in it.
Because you are going to raise great husbands.
I was just going to say,
your girls will do that anyways. And yes. I bet the boys wouldn't have.
Correct. How many boys do you have?
I have 2.
Okay, so they are, yes, their wives are not going to have to just harangue them to share their calendars. And I'm not speaking from like personal experience. Kyle and I are pretty dialed at this point. I'm speaking from like every woman I've ever talked to.
Yes.
My amazing husband still does not have a planner, doesn't have a digital calendar.
He doesn't use his phone?
Not for a calendar, no.
Oh,
I know it's so different. Like that's been a journey, but like, so I manage the family calendar, but I would have naturally, like personality wise. But it's so funny you say this about our boys, because my 22-year-old went to college, and pretty soon, I don't remember when, but he started, when he would bring his stuff back home, whiteboard calendar was in his stuff.
Nice. You're so proud. That's incredible.
Yes. So at least that one thing in all of my parenting, I know that one thing stuck. Wasn't even a goal.
Can I go back to kind of the beginning of our conversation when you were talking about loving work? You loved work. You thought this is it. I don't need to get married. I'm not going to be a mom. I'm curious if you could identify what made you feel like you couldn't hold both.
Well, like the model, my mom was a full-time mom, and she had a business. She's an artist. And so she periodically she had a calligraphy business, and she would do drawings. So I remember seeing that modeled. My dad had a really intense corporate job. There was always that primary parent who was home and solid and available. And I think too, growing up in the church, as a Christian, and I still hold that faith, there's a lot in the Christian church that's confusing about like, what does a godly mom do versus, an ungodly mom. And so I think I did believe, I just had this idea that if I believe in God and I want to raise kids, that I really need to devote my whole life to that. And maybe do a little side thing, but like, I loved work so much. Like I didn't really want to be home. So I think there was some beliefs, right? And they weren't all wrong. They were clashing for me. So I had to figure out like, what do I really believe? What is really true? What does the Bible really say? Or what do I believe it says, I guess, which is, I guess, scary space to be, but whatever. But I had to figure out what I was going to believe about that. And my husband was super, it's so funny because I say I'm a recovering feminist, and I'm sorry if that offends some people, but
no, I want to dive in. What do you mean by that?
And my husband was always just very progressive. Like he never felt like he had to pay for our dates, or he would hold the door because I'm a human being, not because I'm a woman, or, like all of this that I just loved at that time. It was very important to me that I was liberated by that. Now I love parts of being taken care of. Right. So I felt like my feminine power, my feminine energy, my newfound freedom was all in this professional world. Like was completely divorced from my motherhood, because that was all submission, and that was all not doing anything with your life. And I have all this education and, all these things that I now call lies, because I don't think that's the truth. But I had just become so focused on being out there and doing all these things and achieving. And I really tied my femininity to that, so that when I did become a mom, I was like, what is this about? Like all of a sudden, then I didn't feel like going away and leaving my baby. That just did not feel right. And I know there's things that don't feel right, but are right. But like over and over, I repeatedly just felt that way and started to think that way. Like maybe I do want to be more home and be their primary influence and their primary caregiver. And so I had started freelancing at the time because that I had Zach, because we moved. So we moved for my husband's job, totally in agreement with that. And then I was pregnant, and I was like, well, I'll just freelance. Maybe I could do this, and then I'd be more flexible, and I could grow my income. I could have my summers off. We could travel. So then it was this idea of freedom, It kind of moved me into that entrepreneurial direction. But it happened at the time that I had Zach. So I got off of that corporate bandwagon, you know, and in my mindset, I was my life shifted at that time. So I could start experimenting with like, okay, well, who am I as a woman? Well, I'm a mom now. And I'm, you know, I can be strong as a mom, and I can still pursue dreams as a mom, and I can still love my family well as a mom. And it doesn't have to look a certain way.
So was it, I'm back to this recovering feminism thing. Was that after having a child, do you think? Like, when did that timeline happen for you, I suppose?
Well, I think in the height of my feminism, I probably wouldn't even have considered marrying my husband. So I think the shift happened when I was like, you know, all men aren't terrible. And I mean, that was like a 2-year, maybe 3-year season for me. So most of my life, you know, I wasn't in that camp, but it was just part of my identity when I, you know, went out on my own. That was a big part of it. So I think it started shifting when I met Eric, and I didn't feel threatened, you know, by him. And I felt like, you know, I maybe do want a family, and there's so much meaning in that. So I think the shift started happening when I started dating him, and was just like, my opinion of guys had changed. And then my opinion of family life started changing as we talked and like about our future, like our plan. I know not everybody has their plan come to fruition, but we managed to not get pregnant for 3 years. That was our plan. And then got pregnant I was 28. So I have had those 7 kids from when I was 28 till I was 42. My last one I had when I was 42.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot for a body. If you didn't think you were strong as a woman bearing children in the beginning, looking backwards, that's Olympian.
Yes. Goddess
Well,
levels.
every woman that has like the ability to carry a child, you know, there's so much strength in that. And I think I don't know. I don't know that I'm like Olympian, but I think there was definitely this weaving back in of, oh my gosh, motherhood is like the queen of femininity. The boys can't do this, right? The men can't have babies. We get to. And so I was able to kind of reintegrate that part of my feminine identity with motherhood. And then this industrious nature that I have and this achieving nature. I read a book probably when I had 2 kids at that time called Professionalizing Motherhood. And it was from Hearts at Home, which was the parent organization for mothers of preschoolers, which was an organization in the past. Now I think they're called Mom Club or something.
I think it's still MOPS.
Is it?
Yeah.
MOPS. I know of all the things to call it, right?
Yeah, that's
it just
rough.
engenders like housewife.
Yeah.
Throw a blender in too and make you a sandwich.
Yeah.
You know, she said, well, what if you just started your day like you would? Like, what if you actually had a loose plan? Like, what if you actually got up and did your makeup and had like a mom wardrobe, just like you have a work wardrobe, and then think about your day. I mean, she didn't talk about a schedule because we all know a schedule really doesn't work with kids. But I love this idea of a flow, right? So first we do this, then we do this, then we do this. And that helped me wrap my arms around this nebulousness of early motherhood, where you're just like waking at all hours of the day and night, and you're like in clean clothes, and then you're spit up on, and then you're like, you know, your body's just changing all the time, and you have kids crying and they don't have language yet. You know, all of that really helped kind of formulate that. And then there's other chapters in the book where it talked about my identity as a woman who is an achiever. Like, those are skills that you still can bring into motherhood. Like, why do I divorce them, right? Why do I say this is only for work and professional life when this is who I am? So I'm going to show up this way. The same way I show up at work is a lot of ways how I show up at home. And why, you know, and if it's not, then why is that? Right. So it was really this idea of integration. Like, it opened my eyes to, wow, I've kind of siloed myself. I have my work Heidi. I have my mom Heidi. You know, I have my wife Heidi.
And how dysphoric.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so common in America, maybe more so than other places. But I felt like that when I was working full time. And even though when I tried to go part-time or quit, even though administration was like, well, just bring the baby, like the office will watch it. You know, I'm like, but you won't. Like, I still can't leave 60 kids and go do this. And like, I will just be thinking about the baby. Like, there was literally no way to integrate that. And I understand, like, you need workers at work. But it's been a journey for me to be working more part-time and more from home, and like realize I can bring kids to meeting, and it can all be woven in with each other, and that it's possible. But that's, I think, why I was so fascinated with you, is because it's just not the norm still.
Well, I think the key, I'm so glad you shared that, Callie, because what it made me think of is how we are from little on, we're in America, well, in other countries too, but we are indoctrinated in sort of this peer-centric culture. So you go be with your peers when you're 3, 4, 5, 6, and you spend most of your waking time with your peers. So it's not weird that then when we graduate and become adults and have families, that like we don't know how to integrate, we don't know how to be family centric.
Never thought about that.
And we were homeschooled.
Right.
Until high school.
Right. And I'm thinking about the beliefs you held prior to getting married, which were similar to many of my beliefs, even as I was married. Kyle and I were married for 7 years before, like we had our 7th wedding anniversary the day after Kieran was born. So I was able to hold a lot of those in my marriage even.
Yeah.
And then becoming a mother, I'm like, oh, there's so much unraveling happening. I don't even know where it begins and where it ends and what it means. Yeah. But as you're walking through what you saw growing up and kind of how your life shifted, I'm like, oh, yeah. If ever there was a godly woman, it had to be my mother.
For sure.
I mean,
that idea of like total self-sacrifice, like I think there's pieces of truth. Like there's always a piece of truth in every lie that we believe. It's just sort of like this twisted nature, and it's sort of unraveling what part of that is true and what part of that isn't. And I think it's also holding the belief that you can be a godly woman and come to different conclusions. Because like even now being on this podcast, I'm thinking like, thinking about some of my friends who might hear it. And there are amazing godly women who have been called to work full-time professionally in a corporate position and have found ways, either with the way they set up their marriage, so like their husband is primary parent, or they have other people who are really involved in their children's lives and all of that character development. And I have other really great godly women friends who would never think about working for pay or leaving like the 4 walls of their home. They're very content at home. They don't have a desire for that. So I don't have this all figured out. I don't even know, like maybe in another 10 years, I'll be like, oh, I had it wrong. I shared my story and I led all those women astray. Really, we should all be at home, or really, we should all go work full time, or I don't know. I just think it's a wrestling. It's a big wrestling. I still wrestle with it, because at every stage there's like different needs. And then, at every stage you look back and go, what results am I responsible for here? And what results are just because they grew up, they showed up a certain way. So I'm just resonating with what you're saying about like having tried to go back and tried to fit back in that model, Callie, and then like Emily coming to motherhood with all of those thoughts and feelings, and then just be totally, like you said, unraveled.
And Emily tried to go back too.
I did go back, for 4 months. I actually liked it. I think it was the perfect time for me to go back. We had in-home care, and they like Great. I didn't have to teach my kid how to eat. That sounded like hell to me. So I'm really grateful for that. This beginning phase of your journey, it sounds so smooth and intentional and like this beautiful progression looking back.
Well, we got pregnant the first month we charted. And I remember looking at that test going, what have we just done? Oh my gosh. Because I was starting to get really sick. So I was really sick with all my pregnancies. And I had a grade 3 tear. So like the recovery was hard. And then, like all the soreness with breastfeeding and cracking and infection and mastitis. And so I think I couldn't even really think about work and professional life because I was in such survival mode. And then all the mental and emotional of there's this little person who needs me to make sure that he stays alive. And, and my husband too, he was very involved. I didn't feel like I was alone, in my parenthood. But I didn't have a mom network yet. So I've had multiple moments of just like, this is horrible. This is so hard. I can't believe we decided to do this, but I'm so glad he's here and I'm so glad he's alive and I'm so glad he's healthy and we'll get through this. And, if I can just get him to sleep, if I can just get him to breastfeed. And this kind of goes back to that whole mentality we talked a little bit about pre-show of just, if I can just get to this next point, life will be easier. And that's a survival mechanism and it works But if it's like my long-term plan, I will always be disappointed because there's always another, if I can just get to, there's always like another mountain to climb. So I think that whole sort of waterboarding, experience, first time mom, was like instilling in me, like, A, you're not in control. B, there's hard things that are still good things. Just because they're hard doesn't mean they're bad. And then C, this is going to be a roller coaster. There is no like ending. You will, for the rest of your life, hold your identity and your personhood in the balance with the identity and personhood of another child, another person. Like there is no, Lord willing, provided everybody stays alive, right? That's what we accidentally or intentionally signed up for. And so trying to figure out how to balance that is like always a conversation. It's always something that we need to move toward because we're never not going to have that tension.
It's just refreshing to hear you say that. So many mom voices out there saying, oh, well, if you just do this in your weekly schedule, you'll have it figured out. And I'm like, okay, for how many years, Rachel? Like while you have, 2 and I don't know. Well, and also as you're talking about, if I can just get to the next thing, that's how I feel about a lot of my life. And it can be in a positive way. Like I'm just excited I love a good anticipation. However, if you're like, if I can just get there, I think you're automatically on defense. So what are you creating for yourself if you're just reacting the whole time? It's hard to lead an intentional life if that's what you're stuck in.
Do you have practices or tools that you use to sort of, I don't know, find the intention of that season and or like balance your values / even figure out what your values are? I mean, amidst the chaos of having, even one kid is chaotic and then you had 7. How do you sit down? How do you find those quiet moments to build out that intention, really figure out what your values are as they change and evolve?
That is such a great question and a great focus, because I think that's the core of the conflict or the tension when we talk about identity and motherhood. It's really a conflict of value. Our values are always competing. Like if I'm valuing achievement over presence, or if I'm valuing, right? So the beginning looks really different than the middle, which looks really different, than the next middle of this motherhood journey for me. So when I think back to the very beginning, I think I just relied a little bit on like, well, who was I before motherhood? What mattered to me before motherhood? And then who am I now, or what's changed? Because naturally things are going to change. The practice of that, I think, was talking with close friends, making sure I had my close friend conversations. And then I am a journaler, like I'm a writer, journaler. And I would kind of wrestle with things in my journal, pray through things. Books, I feel like I mentored, or I allowed myself to be mentored by authors. There's so many women that wrote books that I just am so grateful for. So the practices were, as far as getting clarity, I mean, I was looking for a framework or some structure to this, like you guys are with this transition into motherhood. Like we know this is happening, but like, where are the mile markers? Like, how do I orient myself to this way of being? So I was reading books about that. And then I think the values conversation came into play in one of those books. But I didn't really clarify my values. I think I did kind of like those Hobby Lobby placards, it's faith, family, football, like, but not to
like
the
these
depth.
were happening in your brain, or was this a hobby of yours?
No. I'm just saying, like, as far as values, I didn't go deeper than just those typical, like, oh, I value family. I value faith. Right. I value football. I don't really value football, but like, those just broad general things. But really, it was like, do I value structure, flexibility? Do I value truth? Do I value freedom? Do I value integrity? Like the depth of those values didn't come until I had 4 kids and I was invited into a leadership program. A friend of mine was creating a leadership program, and I had done table facilitation in other groups. And she's like, hey, I just need a table facilitator. Do you want to come down? So then I was in her program, and she had this amazing values card exercise where you take a solid 30 minutes and you're doing card sorting and you're trying to prioritize, like, what words resonate with you? What values do you have? And you can only pick 5, which is like as most real world as you can get, because we can't live into all our values all at the same time. I mean, one is always going to be slightly over the other one with those choices.
Hey, Cal, do you
Hey.
remember when I was first pregnant, one of the first questions I came to you in a panic over?
What do I wear?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, what the heck do I put on my body? And do you remember the first recommendation you had for me?
I'm sure it was Kindred Bravely, because I tell every single new mom that they have to look into Kindred Bravely.
Yeah, no, that was how I remembered it too. Yeah, I think
Okay.
specifically the leggings were
Yeah,
the
fave
starting.
products.
Absolutely.
Leggings, bras. I mean, everything in between. You know what I've been wearing recently, which is funny? They're really nice bamboo, no slip, like hospital socks.
Shut the front door.
I was out of socks, put them on. They were so nice. I haven't taken them off for 3 days.
I've never tried those. They're incredible. All of the things I've had from them, I've had for like 3 years. No wear and tear even.
No, it's
Somehow
amazing.
they don't pill. They're airy. I mean, yeah, phenomenal product. And this company is founded by women. It's led by women, moms specifically. So they get us. We love them.
So how do listeners support this mom-owned business?
They can use the link in our show notes. Start there and make sure that you enter our code, the Real Mom Hub 15 at checkout for 15% off your purchase.
And you can buy all these staples that honestly you'll keep in your drawers long after maternity, postpartum season is done for you.
Yeah, I never put mine away. My
Worth
body
it.
shrank back almost back to normal.
And so did the clothes.
The leggings still fit me.
Incredible.
How? We don't know.
Incredible.
We don't know, but we love them. Thank you, Kindred Bravely. Hi, Emily here. I'm interrupting briefly with a quick ask for you. It's the only ask we're ever going to make of you, and it's this. If you're enjoying the show, if these conversations are adding value to your life, please make sure you're following us on whatever platform you usually listen on. This really helps us grow the show and make sure that we are capturing quality experts for our interviews. So please support the project if you're enjoying. If you're feeling like you have extra energy, please check us out on social and make sure you're following along there at the Real Mom Hub on all platforms. And we have a weekly newsletter. You can sign up for that on our website at therealmomhub.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so grateful for y'all.
So that was really the framework for my aligning my values. And then Eric and I did it together, the values alignment. And that was huge for our family, because then we were like making choices about what our kids are involved in, or are we schooling, homeschooling? Are we public schooling? Are we private schooling? Like everything sort of came into alignment with that. So practice wise, it looked different at each stage. And now, and like we've already redone that values alignment. I think it was 8 years after the first time we did it as a couple, and then for our family.
And did it change?
Some of them did.
Really?
Because values can change. They change based on life experience. They change on stage of life. Those two things really impact where your values are at. And so when you go through this massive life experience about becoming a mom, it's natural that some values would shift. But just getting language around that was really helpful for me.
And were you working at this time?
So when I had Zach, I was freelancing. I was kind of remote before remote was cool. Because I had moved.
Right.
And they did let me bring the baby in office sometimes, like in a pack and play, he could nap. But no, then I only freelanced, but I found myself pregnant. I never cycled. And I found myself pregnant with our second child.
I love that you charted for the first one in like first month. And then of course you don't cycle. Of course, like you're the person where it's like, this is going to happen to you.
Right. I just didn't think that I could sustain a pregnancy and breastfeed, but that clearly has not been the reality of my life.
Well, okay, so you're freelancing, so you still have your foot in the door professionally. I'm curious, like when you're having these values conversations, were you still working? And did you learn anything earth-shattering that changed how you saw work or how you saw that intersection? We were speaking so eloquently earlier about having synergy between all of your roles as a woman. And I'm wondering when that started to come together for you.
I think in the beginning, I was doing work because I was holding on to what I thought was my identity. So I was not integrated. It was like, well, I'll be darned if I'm going to give this up. because this is the last piece of who I am. Someone else has been in my body. Like, hosting that little child, like feeling like an alien in my own body. And then there was just so much change and so much discomfort that I think, well, at least if I can work, that feels normal.
And probably important at the time.
It was important. So it was sort of a dance, and I was kind of like, oh, well, I'm embracing motherhood. And then we moved again. So we had a lot of like other external transition. And that's when I found myself pregnant with Emmy. And then, but I really wanted to still work. And I think what was happening at the time, and I didn't know it, is I started building something that was family centric. I'm laughing at myself because it's still a lot of work, and there's still, instead of having one boss, you have all your clients as bosses. But this idea
and you
that
have your baby bosses, like,
and then you're
and then you're like, okay, well, if you don't nap, I'm screwed tonight. So where are we?
Yes, you're so right, Emily. But like I could expand and contract with my family life because I was prioritizing, my pregnancies and then being the primary caregiver of my kids. So, and that cycle lasted, I mean, obviously with that many kids, that cycle lasted. I was pregnant or breastfeeding for, the better part of 15, 16 years.
I can't even picture it.
I know.
That's so much. So you had to just ace these sweet spots.
Right.
When you had the energy, when you were able to just dig in.
Well, and the kind of business I was in could do that. Like I was freelancing marketing and graphic design. So it was all project based. So, and the project cycle was about, it could be 1 month super compressed, but it was about 3 months. But it was in these micro seasons, these 3 months of time ish, where my business would flourish. And then I'd be really focused on motherhood and growing another baby or birthing one, and then I could do something in my business. It was really, I could be more adaptable, A, because I owned it, and B, because I was developing a mindset that it's every 3 months I kind of get to regroup. And I know work's important and I know my family's important. So every 3 months, I'm just going to kind of say, where are we at now?
Can you just tell us all about that? You said micro seasons. And so now I just need to know, like, what is this? Let's start there.
It's a signature method that I use in my coaching practice to help men and women, but it really fits well with women, especially with kids, right? That helps people be present and profitable. So it really was birthed out of my whole journey of 20 years of being a mom, having an entrepreneurial business. I've switched a couple businesses based on who I was becoming at the time, my energy levels at the time, right? Different locations that we've lived. But I've always had something that I've always had a business that I was working in. I don't know, a few years ago, when I started leadership coaching more, I started pulling in these different tools, like the values card deck exercise. I got certified in my friend's process. So now I have that tool. So I'm like, that was so helpful. So we're going to bring that in. Clifton Strengths is something I use, but it's understanding my design. Like, who am I? I believe I was created. So who am I created to be? There's just parts of me that are always going to be there, no matter what role I'm in. And I started thinking about my life instead of like siloed, like work Heidi and mom Heidi, and started thinking about myself, like, who is the core of Heidi? And then what are my roles, right? So then I can show up as a mom, I can show up as a business owner, I can show up as a coach, I can show up as a friend, I can show up as a daughter, but the core of who I am is still who I am. And that's a piece of this program. So there's this awareness, kind of an assessment period where you just go, who am I right now? What am I about right now? What matters to me? And then the second part is an alignment piece where you say, okay, so then with all these roles I have, all these responsibilities I have, all these dreams I have, all these callings I have, all these expectations I have, these are all things that you might have for yourself or what other people might have for you. You kind of start to sort through and say, okay, well, I am human and I'm one person. So what is reasonable? What aligns with my values and what I feel like I'm called to be focused on right now? And then there's this planning piece where we take, the 5 key areas, 5 key roles or buckets of life that you really feel called to show up in. And we define success. Like, what does success look like in that? Because I know for myself, it looks different at different seasons. And those 3-month cycles are I use those. Like when we're in soccer season with 3 kids on 3 separate soccer teams in different fields, and 2 kids just getting them into college, that is not the season where I'm going to go away with my husband. That's not the season I'm going to like take my kids out for coffee and try to like be intentional mom kid one-on-one time. So success as a parent in that season, like I actually have written out, it's showing up on bleachers, it's, you know, driving around. But like the little kid time, I actually identified what is success as a parent. It's getting up for midnight or the late night, all night feedings. You know, it's making sure everyone's fed. It's making sure they're bathed. It's making sure that they have an opportunity to sleep, right? Like I had to list it out. So I felt like I was accomplishing something.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, it was just defining what is success. So I don't always feel like I'm failing.
This is hitting so hard right now because my days are so amorphous. I can have 3 small goals. And sometimes I'm stymied by a tiny person. And I'm like, I used to do these things in my sleep. What do you mean I can't just get the dishwasher unloaded today? Like that was just one goal, you know? Yeah. So to have your successes defined, that I'm going to be doing some work after this. But also the example you gave of, okay, well, this is not the season to go away with my husband. I'm in this place of, okay, well, my life looks so different now than it has. When does the old life get to creep in, or do I just grieve it and let it go? But to hear you say, okay, well, this is not the season for that, that leads me to believe that you could plan ahead. Like, hey, when soccer season is done, I know that has an end date. It's going to be on my calendar. We can, you know, have a weekend away to work on our marriage. Like there's just like this hope that I felt hearing you say that, because you've identified, you know, what's going on, what's important. And you've also identified the shift ahead of time.
Yeah, I love that you say that brings hope, because I feel that too. Like I think when I can say, well, it will come. But I'm curious, what is it about your old life that you miss?
Oh, we had a really charmed existence. We both had good jobs. We lived in, honestly, an adult playground. It was not family friendly. We lived in Seattle. We lived in the Pacific Northwest. So
Awesome.
We lived downtown. So we could, you know, a Tuesday night dinner. I mean, it was really just an extravagant lifestyle. Tuesday night dinner was like, oh, yeah, we can drop X amount just for fun, for happy hour, because we felt like spending time with each other and have a dozen oysters or whatever. And then, oh, this weekend we're looking a little freer. Oh, you know what? Let's book that gorgeous Airbnb in the mountains. Why not? It's a 45-minute drive. So something that I don't have aspirations to raise a kid in. And my life is so much richer and better now. But I'm still, you know, 2 years in and a bit of a culture shock. So I'm like, am I just still going to be grieving for a while? Or can we bring some of that back in?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question.
When it can occur.
Well, and I love that question. Can we bring it back in? Because that's where I was thinking of asking you, like, what part of that could you bring in, or what part, like if you get to the core of it, so it's not going to look like oysters on Tuesday night and walking down. Maybe it is.
Probably
maybe
not. Probably not.
Milwaukee.
Not in Milwaukee. I mean, it's possible.
But like what I heard about that was freedom and like new experiences.
Totally. All the time. Constantly.
Yeah. And so, you know, I don't want to say, oh, you can't do it now. Like maybe that is what you feel like you want to take from my comment about the micro seasons. But also I just want to encourage you, maybe there's some piece of that you want to bring in now. Like you do say, it is important. I need freedom one night a week or one night a month. Like, so I'm going to totally book a sitter, or I don't know what that looks like for you, but you know, it's okay to say, I miss these things and they're still part of me. Like I love freedom. I love fancy dinners and I love Airbnbs. So I know we're not going to do it every Tuesday night, and I know we're not going to do it every weekend. We feel like it, but like, let's put that in our life somehow.
And I think what was also really powerful for me is hearing you say, okay, we have to define the success first, because right now I don't think I feel comfortable doing that. I don't think I feel comfortable asking for the time or asking for the thing or making it a priority unless I feel like we're acing things I'm acing things as a mom. So it's like, what does that look like? I can't know that I'm acing it if I don't know what it looks like.
As a parent of a toddler right now, I feel like it's so easy for me when Charlie's like, but Mom, I want to go skiing today. I'm like, duh. you can't go skiing till there's snow, you know? And like, and as you were saying that and saying season over and over again, I'm like, oh, that's such a helpful way for me to realize like the universe or the creator or whatever it is, like, can look down on me and be like, duh, you can't do that right now. And yes, I promise the winter will come and you can go skiing. You know, like just to zoom out, that's really helpful too.
So how many seasons do you probably have in a year, or do you even know? Does it change year to year?
Yeah, so I typically have 4 now. Sometimes I've had 5. I'm looking over here at my post-it notes. So the book, The 12-Week Year, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it is, and this idea of quarters or every 3 months or 90 days is not a new idea. Like it's been all over business, but what I feel like is new about it for me was just accepting that I'm going to live my life in these 90 days. Like I'm going to define success for 90 days instead of like, okay, the success is at the end of the year. And, this is just the milestone thing that I'm going to try to get to in the next 3 months, but just actually saying, what does success look like in these 90 days? So yes, the seasons I usually have in a year right now, because I'm working with businesses, I do just the 90 days. So it's quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. Okay. But my 3 months don't necessarily align with the business months because of our school schedule. So I have, right now I'm in June, July, and August. So summer is a quarter because summer looks totally different with my public school kids home, even my homeschoolers. Like I'm not schooling in the summer. We take a break. And then it's September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. And so the seasons of weather change kind of during those times. There's holidays that mark those seasons. And then our family schedule kind of fits in there with all the sports I was telling you about, or like family fun we want to do in the summer. I make my works. I just changed my whole work schedule calendaring, in my Calendly for clients to book, just changed it to summer hours because now it's summer. So I'm not working Monday afternoons all day Wednesday because I want to go to the pool in the afternoons.
Mm-hmm. Yes. This is such a power play. I'm going back to your, we were talking about feminism in the beginning of this interview, and I'm thinking back to trainings professionally in my old life. There's just a lot of coaching around language that women can use, specifically like in emails, like how to speak from a place of power. And, no, thank you for being here, but like, you're welcome that I showed up, really, is kind of the tone, right? Like we're trying to, I think, in a lot of industries where it's a more masculine dominated space, coach women on how to take up more space and how to claim their power and work from a place of power. So I think this is the ultimate power move, actually, to say, well, no, this is my life. So these are actually my quarters. This is how my professional life is dictated. And these are my energy points.
I hadn't ultimate thought about it that way, but wow. Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I'm sure you're more effective. Like it's an efficacy thing too, because you are able to show up better.
I am. And what's interesting, as you were talking, it was like actually some of my clients, their summer schedule changes too. So they like that I have early morning times because their kids are home, or, they've got a camping trip here and another one here. And I think too, it models, because the work I do with people is leadership coaching. And a big part of that is rest and rhythm. And so it models like, hey, I'm doing this in my own life too, because it works for me. And so if I had a newborn, I would not have any early morning appointments available. If I would only book when people were generally napping. And then I have had like all these backups or things I need to do when they don't nap, right?
It's a horror. It's just like a thing that like lives over my head sometimes during these conversations.
I know, like, you feel like, oh my gosh, the clock is ticking. What would be natural rhythms for you ladies in your stage of life with the kids that you have right now? Like when you think about microseasons, what would be natural rhythms for you or breaks for you?
Well, mine still was on a school calendar. Like this is going to be the first year that I'm not really, even though I still am a little bit. So it still feels like that to me. So I feel like I'm figuring out a new, and I don't know what it is yet.
I feel like I'm in a cloud of ether. So I have to create it. Like when we became pregnant, it was around the time we talked about but also a surprise to me because I wasn't quite ready.
Mm-hmm.
So those 3 months, Callie told me later, she was like, I was going to ask you if you were depressed. And I was just so sick. So it's been really around like, oh, what can my body do as it changes? But not so much the 2-year-old because he's 2. So that's what I mean by just living in a cloud of like, well, I could create the micro season.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
wanna do
really
that.
sure. I need to know. I think right now I'm like, okay, I actually really need to create this for myself because I had not contemplated prior to this conversation what an end date would do for my brain.
Mm.
And I think that's going to be amazing once I do some soul searching and attach this to a calendar.
Yeah, I'm gonna up my journaling game and get a really big calendar.
I
I
love
just
it.
hate it in this moment.
On that note, yeah, do you have journaling practices that are crucial to you or that have remained consistent over the years?
Well, I've always had a need to like get my brain on paper, clear the mental clutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do that verbally too, but I don't always have a friend who's available at that time to talk, or sometimes it's not clear enough to talk it through. So most of the time I feel like I'm like I haven't been able to exhale. Like there's just so much coming at me that when I sit down to journal, like I don't have a prompt. I'm just like finally like throwing it all up on the paper. For me, at this season in my life, and I keep trying to think about what it was like when I had a couple little kids or when I was pregnant, right? I'll just start with where I'm at now is for the last 5 to 10 years, like I've had a need, I just go away. Like it used to be just for a day or 6 hours. I'd go sit at a coffee shop. I'd bring some books. I'd bring my planner and I would just be able to take care of my mental clutter. Like I'd write down all the things I had to do in sort of these areas that I wanted to get done. And I'd have a page for my business so I could write down all those thoughts. And probably 6 years ago, we were at a place with the ages of our kids and my mental health where I was like, I need at least 15 minutes. Like, can you, to my husband, like, no matter what, he works from home. I'm like, no matter what, I need to know I'm going to have 15 minutes and you will please bring me coffee. So he brings me coffee. I don't even go down into the fray, right? I just stay upstairs, brings me coffee, and I have a quiet time. And that revolutionized me at that time once I had like 6 kids. And then that practice lasted when we had Eva, even with a nursling, because I was like, I can't even function. Like I could not function without those 15 minutes of quiet.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can I just offer one other thing? I know you want to ask a question.
Yeah.
As you were talking about the transition, like from having this beautiful, charmed life into motherhood, you know, and you weren't quite ready. And I felt the same way. Like when I got my pregnancy test, I wasn't quite ready. It's what I wanted, but I was also freaking out. I think in our humanity, like no one really wants to sign up for all the hard. Even if we tell everybody, like, no one told me it was going to be this hard. Well, yeah, did you really want to know?
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. I mean, I've said that many times, like, no one told me about this. No one told me about that. And I'm thinking, I was reticent even knowing like a third of the hard. Would anybody ever have a child and become a mother if we told them all the hard things about motherhood?
Or could they absorb it? I mean, I think about that a lot too. A lot of the conversations we're having are things I do wish that I would have known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe you
But
do.
But I think about, had I heard them, I don't think they really would have registered. I think I would have said, oh, but it'll be different. I can manage it. Or I can, it'll be fine. So I don't even know that we're ready to hear it. It's just more a conversation of, okay, how do we get through it and support each other and feel the growth on the other side? Like, but look back and say, well, look how far we've come despite the hard.
Mm-hmm. Yes, despite the hard. And I think really what you're talking about, that's like a reframing. You know, when you're talking about growth, that's a reframing of the hard. And even when it comes to identity, this reframing, so many people say, I lost my identity in motherhood. I lost it, or I'm trying not to lose myself in motherhood. And I was one of those people that I thought, like, I don't want to lose myself. That's why I kept working. That's why I kept doing certain things. And really a shift happened for me when I reframed that and thought, well, why not? Like, what's so bad about motherhood? Or the other shift is, was I really who I am or was destined to be before motherhood?
That's such a powerful question to me, because I think the unraveling for me that I've been experiencing the past couple years A lot of it is, well, what was put on me that I just accepted that isn't core to what's important. Like, it's also been empowering. It hasn't just been floundering. So it is such a good question. Yeah, identity in general.
Well, in the core, I love that you use the word core, because there's this analogy that came to me. You guys know Da Vinci, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sculptor and painter. And he made one of his famous sculptures is the David. I think before motherhood, I thought that I was who I am supposed to be. And I was really just a rough cut block of granite. I guess if you want to take this analogy, like from my family, right? I finally like separated from my family. I made a life of my own. I am who I'm supposed to be. And then I was like completely astounded when I became a mom. And then there was more of this chiseling happening.
This is hitting. I'm like, yeah, I thought I had this figured out. What we have, wow, this is just the beginning? Are you kidding me?
No, you were a rough cut block of granite.
Yeah.
Wow. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
So really motherhood and matrescence is about becoming more of who we were always designed to be. Like Da Vinci saw the David in that, you know, and whether it's our creator, I mean, I believe it's our creator who sees like the core of who I am, my soul, the core of who I am. And every life experience is chiseling me into more of that image. And so when I think of it that way, it still hurts like hell a lot of times. It's not comfortable, right? But it's not like a loss of something that went out to sea. It's like a becoming, which feels more purposeful.
And it's artistic and it's creative.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say, when I think of David, he's so masculine. I just need to get that image
Is he though?
out of.
Is he like, no, he is.
I
He
saw him in
is.
Italy and I was like, whoa.
Oh, see, I was like, well, this is smaller than I thought.
Yeah, I was in college. I was just like, whoa.
Did Da Vinci do a female sculpture too, or was it only David?
I don't know.
I know that David is the famous one, but yes.
I don't think
The analogy still stands. I'm just thinking about his penis, but it's okay.
I'm pretty sure he just didn't worship women in the same way he did men, though. So
yeah, it could be. But I know, like they said, he chiseled like with a rough chisel, and then he had a fine chisel, and then it was sandpaper, and then it was a velvet cloth.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about, like, if we take this analogy further, like, you know, there's maybe aspects of our identity that get to velvet cloth sooner, or, you know, but I think for those of us who are called into motherhood, who are open to it, who choose it, who are given the gift of fertility and being able to carry a child, you know, accepting that this is part of becoming versus it's a loss of something that was actually truer. You know, it's just a huge mindset shift. And that really was a moment. You asked me earlier, Emily, and I couldn't come up with a moment, but that mindset shift was a moment for me where I was
That's huge.
Okay, I can do the hard things. I can embrace this discomfort. And then I'm not second guessing myself constantly, like, because my core is still there. My core has never left. It's just becoming more beautiful or more defined.
So powerful.
I think I'm just going to listen back to this clip, maybe like top of my morning for a while.
It's your affirmation for the day.
Totally. For women who are intrigued by the Microseason journey, we will make sure we include your email or places where our listeners can find you. But I'm wondering if you could give a brief framework of how they could approach that. So do you have tools or resources that listeners could go to?
I do have some helpful tools to kind of get started. There's nowhere to go anymore because my website's still getting a revamp. But I'd be happy to email one of them to you. It's just taking 3 basic steps. And the first one is mind mapping everything that's before you. So you put a circle in the center of a piece of paper and it's called My Life. And you can just start drawing out, you know, mom to, what's his name? Kieran? No.
Kieran.
Yeah, Kieran. Mom to Kieran. And then anything that comes to mind about that for you, like that you're responsible for, or a role you play, you know, if it's nurturing, if it's feeding him, if it's bathing him. And then maybe you have a line for your husband, Kyle, and, you know, and then maybe you have a line for your sisters because you're also a sister, and you have a line for your daughters or being a daughter, you know, and all these different pieces. And you have your podcast and you have any other hobby. You just put it all on paper, and just then from that point, group them into no more than 5 bucket areas. And everybody's are different. I have a bucket for marriage and parenting, the relational pieces of that. I have a bucket for kids in school and like the logistical part of my parenting of the kids. I have a bucket for my work. I have a bucket for myself, and I have a bucket for other ministry. So anything I do at church, anything, bringing a meal to a friend, like loving on other people. So those are my 5 buckets. Then what you want to do is consider those 5 buckets, and you can even draw on a piece of paper if you're artistic or not, but just little boxes like Polaroids, because I call them snapshots of success in my program. Mm-hmm. So you draw 5 Polaroids, and if you want to draw a picture, you can, or if you want to just write words of like, what does it look like in my marriage and parenting bucket? Like when I'm thinking about relationships, I'm showing up to games, I'm having a date night twice a month, or whatever it is. Just get specific and articulate that. Not super tasky, more like, this is who I am when this is happening the way I want it to happen. And then the third piece is just to think of the next 90 days and pick 1 or 2 things from each of your 5 buckets that you could focus on. So for kids and logistics, for me, it's not school right now. It's cleaning the schoolroom, and it's driving them to their different activities. I also have like summer fun in there because I'm not driving them to a bunch of activities as much as I am in school year. So we're going to go to the pool, or we're going to go to a park. We're going to go get dilly bars. Yeah. So those would be the 3 basic things. Just, put it on paper. And the goal is not to get overwhelmed. The goal is to just try to categorize. So it's like dumping your kitchen drawer out, the messy one, right? And you're like, oh, this is here. This is here. This is here. Like, how could I organize this? Okay, we're going to come up with 5 buckets to put it in, define success, and then pick 1 or 2 things that you can move toward in those areas in the next 90 days.
And there's a deadline. Yes, yeah. 90 days. That's it.
Yep, 90 days, that's it. That's right. So yeah, it really is great to have that, because I think what I love about the defining success and the deadline is that it lets me know when it's enough.
That's my problem. That's huge.
And so you're always hearing this drumbeat of it's not enough, do more, be more, do more, be more, until you can define like what is actually, when have I arrived? And of course there's these ideals that are going to be out there for longer than 90 days. But right now, this is enough. And it is going to move me. Micro successes, every micro season, it's going to move me more toward where I want to be.
So good. So good.
With it all.
I could talk to you for 3 more hours. Thank you so much for being here. This has been
likewise, ladies. This
so
is
interesting and valuable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. And you're doing amazing things in your motherhood, even though it feels like they can't even talk. They can't even thank you right now. But just the fact that you're showing up and giving so much time and energy and creating a whole podcast to motherhood.
All about them.
Yes.
Really quickly, best way for people to find you if they want to learn more, if they want to reach out to you.
Yeah. So my website will be live again soon, and that's HeidiLewerenz.com. But in the meantime, you can email me at Heidi@HeidiLewerenz.com. And I know it's, like Callie said, it's complicated. So we'll put that in the show notes, spelled out correctly. I am on Instagram, but I haven't posted for 2.5 years. So you can message me through there because I'm still on it. I'm just not putting out content. So if you go there and you're like, what?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies, so much. And thank you both for the work you're doing to support moms and just to bring to light conversations that don't always happen or maybe are uncomfortable for people, but it's easy to listen in your earbuds. So thank you so much for your work. It's important.
We'll talk soon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Real Mom Hub. Our music is by Naomi O'Leary. You can find us on social at The Real Mom Hub. We're not the authority or even very educated on the medical issues discussed. Do your own research, talk to an expert, make your own decisions, and call us if you learn anything new.
If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram, or better yet, subscribe to our newsletter. If you don't, that's fine. We can all move on. Our purpose here is community, so if we've resonated with you, tell a friend.
Thanks for listening.